Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
Welcome back to Options Insider Radio. Our next guest is a returning visitor with pretty long intervals in between. We're talking now with David Harris. He is the president and CEO of the CBOE Stock Exchange. David, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy participating.
Now, it's been about exactly a year since you were on the show last, so I'm sure a lot has happened in the intervening time. But before we dive into that, I know we have some new listeners right now who are saying, CBS what? This is not CBOE. So let's clarify that and explain that a little bit for our new listeners, exactly what the CBOE Stock Exchange is and what you guys do.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we go by the acronym CBSX, which, as you just pointed out, is the CBOE Stock Exchange. I'm not sure how we came up with the CBSX, but it is what we're known by. And we are owned 50% by the CBOE and 50% by outside investors. And we really work closely, really hand in glove with the CBOE side of the family. I'm accompanied by Gail Olston, who is making sure that I don't say anything wrong.
She's your off-mic handler today.
She is my handler.
She's glaring at me the whole time, making sure I don't take you off the reservation.
No, and I'm attached to some sort of electrical device. It will shock me if I say anything wrong. But we work very closely with the CBOE guys, which allows CBSX to be a very, very small operation in terms of employees, but have the full team at the CBOE standing behind us. We've actually shrunk in number of employees since last year. We spun off some of our floor-based employees, have started their own business, which made sense to spin off. So we run CBSX with 5 employees, which is probably the smallest stock exchange.
Light and nimble.
Yeah, light and nimble is right. I mean, it's a lot of fun for us because everybody gets to wear a ton of different hats. And we were joking before we came on board, what everyone's title is. And it's really hard to put people in buckets because, everybody does a lot of different things, which makes,
I'm familiar with that phenomenon.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic.
I wear about 5 different hats a day myself.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting you mentioned that. First off, I'm glad you can come on. I know a lot of CBOE's in a quiet period, so there's not many people who can talk about much over there, so I'm glad we can get you on to at least give a little bit of insight what's going on the stock exchange. And now I know when we talked last year, we were talking about kind of what value added the CBOE Stock Exchange has, and a lot of it obviously was facilitating crosses for the CBOE members. Most equity options guys like to hedge with stock, and they like to do it tied, so to facilitate that makes a lot of sense. I know that was the bulk of your volume a year ago, so I'm curious, is that still the bulk of your volume is tied stuff from CBOE members?
No, the fun thing and the crazy thing about running a market, it's literally a living animal. So, flows ebb and flow. Sometimes, a lot of our volume is associated with the, options that are tied to the stock. There are other days where that's a very, very small piece of our business and there's a lot of volatility and you get a lot of intermarket sweeping that's occurring, and it's a lot of high frequency that is, our volume. So, it literally, it's a living, breathing animal. And I think what's changed for us in the last year is that we've continued to add people. So we have a lot more participants than we had a year ago today, which is sometimes lost because I think people think CBSX is CBOE and everybody's connected to the CBOE. But the reality is, when we launched 3 years ago, we had almost no one connected. So we continue to add new users to our market, and that has actually helped us quite a bit. And then we continue, the new users want new products to trade. So since we talked last time, I think we had like 5,000 products listed on us.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, now we have about 7,000 products. There is nothing that's not traded in the United States that's not traded on CBSX. And when things get added, we add them in due course. The volumes that we have, you kind of touched on it before. We still provide that important service to the Chicago-based option trader of having an equity market that they can hit first on their way to liquidity on the East Coast. And the concept behind that is that you hit us first, and if we can fill you in Chicago, then you save the 15 or 20 milliseconds if you're lucky. And going in New York, you get your hedge up faster. It's cheaper for you. It's anonymous for you. Yeah. So it's the old mantra. It's faster, cheaper, better. Well, that's really what it is at CBSX.
Now, I know obviously the reason for the exchange initially was to focus on those CBOE guys, but you mentioned the hot buzzword of the day these days, which is high frequency stuff. Everyone is talking about that. Everyone, that's, like I said, that's the hot topic. So what are you doing to really expand and reach out to that audience? I mean, is it just a fee issue, making fees that are attractive to these guys, or is it latency, or all of the above? Or
it's actually interesting. I think fees matter for the guys who are laying liquidity, because their models really take into account, okay, I'm going to get a 25 mil rebate, so my quote's going to be this narrow. So pricing matters, but what you see on the stock side is that everybody's pricing is roughly the same. So it's the super ultra sensitive high frequency guys that really care about a mil. For the most part, most traders are like, look, if you're within a mil or two of each other, well, you're not going to sway our behavior. So, pricing matters. Technology matters a ton. And I think actually, above all, technology matters more than the pricing. And since we met last time, the CBOE has made some incredible strides in CBSX's technology. I mean, when we, literally a year ago, we are 7 times faster now than we were a year ago. And we have devoted a lot of resources in making ourselves super duper fast. So we are as fast as anybody else that's out there. What the challenge was, and it's really a balance, is that we're using CBOE Direct to run CBSX. CBOE Direct is an options exchange, an equities exchange, and a futures exchange. So you have a lot of different functionality that exists there, but the reality is the more functionality you have and the more complicated you make your systems, the slower it is. So the exercise over the last year was to strip out as much as we could while still maintaining what we need to do as an exchange and offer a fast venue. And so that's been a very, very big change. And then the third thing, which makes us unique, because speed and technology are what everyone competes with. So when you're on the East Coast, literally your mantra is, if you change your routing behavior, we're going to be able to save you X amount of dollars. And by the way, our system is this fast. And that's what really people are fighting over. And people bring in presentations and they show, based upon your flows, if you change this amount, you're going to make this much. And so, for us, our kind of unique proposition is we're bringing in unique flow for people to trade against in the first instance. So yes, our rebates are high. Yes, our technology is good, but we're bringing in this kind of unique element of people coming into CBSX first. And that is the flow that high-frequency traders on the East Coast actually don't get to participate in.
Okay.
And that's what attracts the high-frequency guys to us.
And interesting you mentioned the East Coast high-freq guys, because that's where a lot of them are located. And B, those guys are, obsessed with latency. I'd imagine, routing all the way to Chicago would add some latency. Have you set up data centers in New York to kind of make that easier for them? And
no, what we do is on the CBOE side, it is very, very cheap to co-locate.
Okay.
Right. It's if there's a place where the CBOE should raise fees, it is on the services that they provide for infrastructure. And so it is a no-brainer for most of these high-frequency firms to simply co-locate in Chicago. Okay. And it gives them multiple advantages. One, obviously, they're closer to CBSX, but two, a lot of the high-frequency firms that are equity are looking into other asset classes, so they are starting to trade out at the CME, and Cermat, and the advantage of having the futures trading next to the equities. There's synergies there that exist, and so it's actually a growing business for us in that space.
When you were on last time, we talked a little bit, because you actually were at NQLX before you came over to the stock side. We talked about it a little bit last year, and I'd like to just get your opinion on it again. The whole issue of single stock futures and where that market has gone. And it's interesting because they had such high hopes when it launched. Obviously, NQLX was people had a lot of hopes for that. That didn't last too long. One Chicago has had some issues getting traction for their product. And I'm curious, as someone who runs a stock exchange now, do you view that as still as a competitor? Or, they're essentially under the same umbrella, so they're an ally/competitor. And then just in general, what do you think of that product, and what kind of, what do you think of the future for the single stock futures?
First of all, I think Dave Downey and his group are doing a really good job. Where when I was involved in single stock futures, the real pitch was that they would be a proxy for the underlying stock, or something you could trade as opposed to the options. And I think and I'm not totally articulate. You really should get Dave on your program to articulate the strategy. But he's done a very good job in kind of shaping a new use for the single stock futures that really takes it away from, like a trading across the different products. And so I actually view them very closely as an ally to us, because I think that there are services that CBSX provides that, is this cross-product niche that we're trying to serve that really adds value to what Dave Downey and his team are doing at One Chicago in getting, people to adopt the product. So I do not look at them as competitors. I look at them as synergistic to us.
Well, Dave, that's about all I have for you today, unless there's something that you'd like to add. Maybe, and I know you can't do much in the terms of forward-looking, but are there any new developments on the horizon for CBSX that our listeners should be looking forward to in the near term?
No, I think what your listeners should be paying attention to is really what's happening in Washington and regulatory developments. I think that the things that we focus on as exchanges, really are applicable to the traders now. And I don't think that traders can sit back and assume that the exchanges, are going to be able to, effectively carry their message, right? I think that in a lot of ways we can, but I think in a lot of ways now the market structure is so complicated that what happens in Washington really affects people's businesses. And no matter how big or small a trader you are, it affects your business. So as you, and you should look at the exchanges that you're a member of to kind of get some guidance on what's coming out of Washington. And then, understand what it means for your business and participate in the process. Because, if you don't participate in the process, the SEC is not going to understand what your issues are. And, you don't have a voice. And truly, the way the comment process works is it's very easy to submit a comment. And it is very easy. And I know the SEC, because I was ex-SEC enforcement, I know they care about what people say. So they consider your comment. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can just literally be, I am so and so, this is my business, and this proposed rule affects me this way, and I think it should be, X way, right? And they'll take into that, take that input into consideration. So that's the thing I think that people should be watching out for.
As a former SEC guy, have you been active down there again with the CBOE lobbying efforts down there and working with them again? Well, you must have a lot of old contacts down there that you still know.
Yeah, the CBOE does a very, very good job on behalf of its members. Mr. Brodsky is there's nothing that I could ever add to the good job that he does. So
he needs a second home down in Washington.
Yeah, so he does such a fantastic job that honestly, this is a place where CBSX really relies on the CBOE. And it's rare that our views are different. I mean, we have, because I'm on the stock side and they're on the option side, there is around the edges some, differences obviously in the products. But, they do such a beautiful job that, I get to ride on their coattails, frankly.
Well said. Well, David, thanks for coming on the show today, and we look forward to having you on again, hopefully earlier than next year's OIC, but we'll see about that. Thanks for coming on. Look forward to having you on again down the road.
Oh, look, thank you. We love participating on the show. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Options Insider Radio. Be sure to visit www.theoptionsinsider.com for more episodes of this program, as well as breaking news from the options market, the latest articles and analysis from options experts, a wide variety of options education, and of course our discussion center where you can share your questions, comments, and insights with your fellow Options Insider users. While you're there, be sure to register for our monthly email newsletter, as well as our free email alert system. Our email alert system makes it even easier to stay up to date on the latest content from theoptionsinsider.com. Thanks again for listening. My name is Mark Longo, and I'll see you next time on Options Insider Radio.
Options Insider Radio was created by Mark Longo and produced by Gene Crotty. Options Insider Radio is a production of the Options Insider Incorporated, all rights reserved.